Some of the returns coming from this weekend, Jeff, Riley Brown in the open field, fantastic, right? He was almost unguardable.
Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm Jeff Howe, joined by CJ Vogel. The second week of spring practice is in the books, but before the Longhorns get started on week 3, CJ, well, let's look at the running back position. And we've talked a lot about this position on the channel and over at ontexasfootball.com in terms of it being remade with personnel. Now we're starting to see it take shape a little bit in terms of a pecking order. And at least right now, I don't think this would surprise anybody, but the intel from practice suggests there's 3 guys maybe starting to separate themselves a little bit. It's Hollywood Smothers, Raleek Brown, and Derek Cooper.
Yeah, those are the 3. I don't think it's a surprise for any of the first 2 names that we talked about, right? Riley Brown and Hollywood Smothers. Look, you come in having a first-team all-conference accolade under your name. It makes sense that you're towards the top, if not at the very top of that running back depth chart after 2 weeks. But Derek Cooper, right now, is really beginning to earn the trust of the coaching staff. Anytime that Texas gets into those team situations, 11-on-11, late in practice, and they've only been in full pads for about 2 practices so far, Jeff. But look, he's busted a few runs that are pretty lengthy towards the back end of practice. And on Thursday of last week, he had probably a handful that would have gone for 15 or 20 plus. So he's making head waves just as we would have expected coming in with the 5-star pedigree out of Chaminade High School as well. And I'll say this as well. When it comes to 5-star freshmen coming in at the running back position, we've seen Sark, we've seen this Texas staff say, if you're good enough, if you're learning the offense quick enough, and if your play is showing up, you're going to get your touches. And right now, things are trending that direction for Derek Cooper after 6 practices.
Here's my big question on the running back position, because, Bobby Burton mentioned in some of his notes over the weekend that the old deal, hey, if they lined up to play a game today, which we know take that for what it's worth, but Raleek Brown would probably be the number 1 running back. And that's not a knock on Hollywood Smothers. That just seems to be what it is. Here's my thing, CJ. We get caught up all the time in the bell cow running back because Sark had that streak snapped last year of 1,000-yard rushers. Does he need a bell cow? Or can everybody eat pretty close to equally if those are your top 3 guys?
Look, I think it could be an equal split amongst the, maybe a 35, 30, 25 plus extra. You know what I'm talking about? I've leaned towards the guys that have been there and done that. It's not to say I'm totally not going to use Derek Cooper if that's the case, but, these guys have played a lot of college football. They've seen a lot of fronts. They've obviously lived in strength and conditioning in the weight room a little bit longer than Derek Cooper has. So I'm going to lean a little bit towards the Riley Brown and Hollywood Smothers duo right now, with Brown getting that nod right now as the top guy. As long as you feel like you have a guy, Jeff, that you can give the ball to consistently in short distances, on goal-to-go situations, or just you must convert and feel like you have the confidence in at least one guy. It doesn't need to be, a one guy takes all backfield. The committee can certainly work, especially when you have as many bodies that Texas has in the room at the moment.
So let's go back to 2023. Let's skip 24 for a minute, but I want to go back to 2023. And it ended up being an equal, I don't want to say equal, but the proportion of the split was kind of nice. And it ended up being that way, unfortunately, because Jonathan Brooks got hurt. And we know if he stayed healthy, he was your bell cow. But you look at the rushing attempts, CJ, and I'm kind of thinking, I know I've compared this to what Sark kind of thought he might have had in 24, but you look at that 2023 backfield. Jonathan Brooks carried it 187 times. CJ Baxter got 138 carries. Jaden Blue got 65, and then you can go all the way down. Trey Weiser only got 12 carries that year, but Savion Red was getting carries out of the Wildcat. That was still a part of the offense. Yep. But I think you can have that split. What I like that the 3 running backs can do, and look, James Simon could be a part of this mix at some point. Michael Terry could be a part of this mix. Does Ryan Niblett factor in? Those are all things to consider. But CJ, aside from the bell cow conversation, I like it because potentially you can save Arch Manning's rushing attempts for when you really need them. And I said this before on the channel. I'll say it again. I'll bang the table till the cows come home. I don't want Arch Manning carrying the ball 10, 12 times against Texas State. Like I want Arch, and you figure sacks factor into rushing attempts, which I'm on board with doing away with that, but that's a conversation for another day. I'd like Arch's rushing attempts against opponents like that to be more like right around 3 or 4. Yeah. So if these 3 running backs bell cow aside, if they can just take some of that pressure off of Arch, because I want Arch to continue to be a weapon in the run game, but save him for when you really need him, CJ. That's what I think these three running backs can do, maybe above all else, for this offense to really help.
Yeah, especially look towards the red area when things get condensed. You're going to fight for every yard. Arch had 12 rushing touchdowns a year ago. I think the rest of the Texas running back room and combined only had 6. So that number should certainly, I would even argue, double, close to triple in 2026, given the talent that you have. And again, it's more about the versatility. So some of the returns coming from this weekend, Jeff, Riley Brown in the open field, fantastic, right? He was almost unguardable in the 7-on-7, the one-on-ones with the linebacker and the running backs being matched up against one another. He hit you with the kind of that Jaden Blue, the quick move to the inside, and you get around to the outside. Look, it's very quick, very difficult to, one, predict, but 2, react to if you're a linebacker. Even safeties have issues with it so far this spring. Raleigh Brown's really, really turning some heads in that regard. But then you look at who else might be down the road, right? If you're getting there beyond Smothers, getting there beyond Derek Cooper, James Simon, a guy that had a very fine end to the season. I think Texas is still optimistic about what he could do. And Michael Terry, I was told that his feet look good and his hands look good over the weekend. What does that mean? Could he, carve out a wildcat role? I think, again, short yardage is kind of where, for his body, it suits his strength, but we'll see. It's still up in the air for that, but you have so many bodies, so many different skill sets. It shouldn't just be Arch Manning and his legs getting the job done on the ground.
And this is why when you and Rod Babers and I talked about personnel groupings, I think we're all in agreement. Hey, the pony package should be – there's no reason why it shouldn't be a really big part of this offense. It should be. But, CJ, I'm thinking you can get really crazy with some 3 running back personnel. And I mentioned Ryan Niblett's role. I mean, if Michael Terry's at a point where he's digested enough of the offense and you feel confident putting him out there, ever since he was on the radar as a recruit, you thought about, man, this is a guy that Sark could really maximize in his offense, really weaponize. If he's ready for that role, CJ, and you've got 2 running backs in Brown and Smothers who we know what they can do as receivers, even though I still think NC State left some meat on the bone. I still think there's another level Sark can get Hollywood Smothers to as a receiver. CJ, you could put so much pressure on a defense with your running back group. That's before you even factor in what you've got at receiver.
I'm just trying to sit here and think about how creative they can get. We saw it right with the double reverse. They call it the twister reverse to Isaiah Bond a few years ago. Yeah. You could do that, right? We saw orbit motion reverses in running back screens. We call it the Sark screen when you had Keelan Robinson and Jaden Blue and these guys that, it's all window dressing at the pre-snap. And when you get the play action fakes, your eyes obviously have to go to a very talented back, and you kind of lose sight of another one that's running around prepared for, big offensive linemen to lead the way. So it gets me excited, but not to mention Texas is going to have an empty formation at times.
Yeah.
Teams are going to have to respect the catching ability of a Raleigh Brown. Right. If Michael Terry's in that role, this was a guy that came to Texas originally as a wide receiver as well. So there are guys out wide that have certainly proven that they can be threats in the passing game and the running game. And not to mention the offensive line, Jeff, should be taking a step forward. And if that's the case, that in itself is a win from a year ago.
Fingers crossed there. CJ, before we wrap this up, let's talk about Michael Terry, because when I've talked about running back here on the channel and written about it over at ontexasfootball.com, I've talked about, hey, Ryan Niblett, can you figure out a role for him? To me, I've compared him to like where Keelan Robinson was going into the 2023 season. Proven return guy, but you need to be able to put him on offense. If you want to use him on offense, it can't be predictable. Have I maybe been looking at the wrong guy? Like, could Michael Terry be that guy that's more of, I don't want to say like your all-purpose back, but really kind of your specialty back that you can do different things with? He's not your full-time running back. He's not getting the lion's share of the carries, but man, you could put him on the field and really create a lot of matchups.
That's the thing. Look, because he's going to be classified as a running back when opposing teams go through the scout. And so if you throw him out wide, it's normally not going to be a corner or safety that's on him. And if so, hey, you still feel pretty solid about that matchup given the athleticism. But what gave me a lot of hope for Michael Terry is when you go back and you look at the Michigan game, Sark wanted to get the ball to him somehow, some way, right? 2 or 3 designed plays just for him, especially in the short distance. I'm not saying Texas is going to put in the Roe Cat or the Red Cat when they had Roschon and Savion Red, but there's still that level of, okay, they've run it before. He kind of fits the bill given he's 6'3", 230-ish pounds, right? He was 227 on the roster. that's the biggest frame. That is the guy that could fall forward, of course, given that he provides the toughness and physicality with the ball in his hands. So there's reason for optimism, and I hope over the next 3 scrimmages, Jeff, that we start to hear more and more about Michael Terry on the field.
And then real quick on Derek Cooper, because you've got the 2 veteran running backs in front of him, I just love the way they can bring him along. You don't need him to be the guy. You don't need him to, hey, we need you to come in here and have 200 carries and be 1,000-yard back. No, like just find your role, figure out what you do best, similar to how they handled C.J. Baxter in 2023. And hopefully by the end of the year, you've got a guy that's a really significant contributor for you.
Yeah, I think he's going to be on the field and be on the field early. In fact, many so far this spring have mentioned him looking as physically imposing as anybody in that room, not to mention I was told that there's a clear distance between he and some of that rest of the running back room, just right behind Raleigh Mount. One source over the weekend said that he was your clear number 2. So take that for what it's worth. I still think Hollywood Smothers is as good as you could have got out of guys that entered the portal, but the early returns on Derek Cooper have been overwhelmingly positive.
After a year where there was injuries and attrition, the running back room is back at Texas to being a focal point of the offense. We'll see. So you've got the body, CJ. We'll just see which guys emerge and what roles they end up playing on this offense in 2026 and how things develop in week 3 of spring practice as we motor on towards the spring game on April 18th. CJ, thank you for the knowledge and expertise as always. Thank you to Matthew behind the scenes for producing it. If you're not a member over at ontexasfootball.com, where we're dropping a lot of our spring practice intel, get over there right now, sign up using the promo code OTFOG, and that'll get you 1 year of access for just $39.95. Again, the promo code is OTFOG when you sign up. That'll get you 1 year of access at ontexasfootball.com for just $39.95. Make sure that you like this video and that you're subscribed to the On Texas Football YouTube channel. That way, whenever we drop a video or go live, you're not missing any of our Longhorn coverage or breaking news. For CJ, for Matthew, for the entire On Texas Football staff, I'm Jeff Howe. Thank you so much for watching and listening, and until next time, welcome.
Hey guys, Blake Monroe here from Coffee and Football. YouTube thinks that you're going to like this video right here, and if the algorithm knows ball, it's a good one. So go check it out, and then don't forget, hit that like and subscribe button.